Imagine a name that has always been synonymous with strength, smiles, and perfection, suddenly becoming a source of global anxiety. What's really going on with BTS's Jungkook? Tonight, we're going to talk about a side ARMY never wanted to hear, a dark side that's slowly coming to light that's leaving the global fandom speechless. This isn't just a rumor. This isn't idle gossip. These are pieces of a mystery coming together, and the results are shocking. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the Jungkook Lover channel, because what we're about to discuss could change the way you see Jungkook forever. Are you ready to hear it all the way through? What is really happening to Jungkook BTS? The dark turn. No ARMY was ready to hear. The question appeared quietly at first, almost like a whisper lost in the noise of daily updates, fan edits, and carefully curated headlines. What is happening to Jungkook BTS? It did not arrive with a scandalous photo or a confirmed statement. There was no official announcement, no breaking news banner flashing red across global screens. Instead, it emerged through subtle absences, uncomfortable silences, and moments that felt off. And perhaps that is what made it so terrifying. Because when the world's most watched idol begins to feel distant, in ways that cannot be explained, the imagination of millions fills the gaps. And the truth, whatever it may be, starts to feel heavier than fiction. For years, Jungkook was presented as the unbreakable center of BTS, the golden standard of discipline, passion, and limitless energy. He was the member who trained endlessly, pushed himself harder than anyone else, and smiled through exhaustion as if pain were simply another obstacle to conquer. Fans watched him grow from a wide-eyed teenager into a global icon, and with that growth came an unspoken agreement. Jungkook would always rise, no matter what. But what happens when even the strongest figure begins to show signs of strain? What happens when the silence becomes louder than any performance? ARMY around the world began to notice it almost instinctively. A look held for a second too long. A laugh that faded too quickly. Moments where Jungkook seemed present physically but distant emotionally, as if part of him was somewhere else entirely. At first, fans dismissed these observations as overthinking. After all, idols are human, schedules are brutal, and exhaustion is normal. But the pattern refused to disappear. Instead, it deepened, spreading across appearances, live broadcasts, and even performances that should have been triumphant. What made this situation feel different, darker, heavier, was not one single incident, but the accumulation of small, unsettling changes. Jungkook, who once spoke openly with fans, began choosing his words more carefully, sometimes avoiding certain topics altogether. The spontaneity that defined him seemed restrained, replaced by a controlled calm that felt less like maturity and more like self-protection. Fans began asking questions not out of curiosity but out of concern. Was he being pressured? Was something happening behind the scenes that the public wasn't meant to see? As speculation grew, so did the unease. Because history has taught K-pop fans a painful lesson. When idols go quiet, it is rarely without reason. The industry thrives on perfection. But perfection comes at a cost, and Jungkook's journey has never been as effortless as it appeared. From a young age, he carried expectations not only as the youngest member of BTS, but as a symbol of potential, talent, and future dominance. Every move he made was watched, analyzed, and judged on a global scale. And while he often turned that pressure into fuel, pressure does not disappear simply because someone smiles through it. Then came the moments that truly unsettled the fandom. Missed interactions, adjusted schedules, subtle but noticeable shifts in energy that fans could not ignore. Some began to whisper about burnout, others about internal struggles, and a few dared to consider possibilities that felt almost forbidden to say out loud. Could Jungkook be reaching a breaking point? Could the idol who seemed to have everything be quietly fighting something far more serious than anyone realized? What made ARMY not ready to hear this possibility was the emotional bond they had built with Jungkook over the years. Fans did not just admire him. They grew up with him, celebrated his milestones, and found comfort in his music during their own darkest moments. To imagine Jungkook struggling felt almost personal, as if the strength fans drew from him was now in question. And that fear, that collective anxiety, spread faster than any official statement ever could. The industry, as always, remained careful. Silence is often the chosen strategy when uncertainty threatens stability. But silence, in this case, only fueled the mystery. Because Jungkook's absence from certain conversations spoke volumes. And every time he appeared, fans searched his expressions for answers, dissecting every gesture, every pause, every breath. Was this still the Jungkook they knew? Or was this a version shaped by circumstances they could not see? As global attention intensified, international media began framing the situation differently, not as a scandal but as a concern. Analysts questioned the sustainability of idol expectations in an era where artists are expected to be endlessly available, emotionally open, and flawlessly productive. Jungkook's situation became a symbol of a larger issue, one that ARMY had long discussed but never wanted to see reflected so clearly in him. The price of perfection, the cost of being the golden maknae. What if the bad thing that happened wasn't a single event, but a gradual erosion of well-being? What if it was the slow realization that even Jungkook is not immune to the weight of global fame? These questions haunted fans, because they challenged the narrative that idols can simply endure indefinitely. And when Jungkook himself hinted, subtly, carefully, at exhaustion, it felt like confirmation of fears fans had tried to suppress. Behind the scenes, insiders spoke in vague terms about rest, reflection, and reassessment. Words chosen to calm, yet strangely unsatisfying. Because ARMY wanted clarity, honesty, and reassurance. Instead, they were given fragments, and fragments invite interpretation. Some fans worried about mental health, others about creative dissatisfaction, and a few speculated about deeper conflicts within the industry structure itself. None of these theories could be confirmed. But the fact that so many felt plausible was alarming. Jungkook's artistry has always been deeply emotional, often rooted in vulnerability. His voice carries a weight that resonates because it feels real. But what if that vulnerability, once his greatest strength, became a burden he could no longer hide? The possibility alone was enough to shake the fandom. Because idols are trained to perform strength, not to reveal fragility. And yet, Jungkook's recent presence suggested a tension between these two realities. As days turned into weeks, the conversation refused to die down. ARMY debated endlessly across platforms, torn between protecting Jungkook's privacy and demanding transparency, from an industry known for masking problems until they become impossible to ignore. Some fans urged patience and trust, while others insisted that silence was dangerous. This division itself became part of the story, highlighting how deeply Jungkook's well-being mattered to millions. The global impact of this uncertainty was undeniable. Jungkook's name trended not for achievements but for concern, and that shift felt wrong, unsettling, almost taboo, because Jungkook was supposed to be the constant, the reliable presence in an ever-changing industry. Seeing him framed as someone who might be struggling forced fans to confront an uncomfortable truth. Idols are not invincible, no matter how perfect they appear. Yet through all of this, Jungkook remained composed, perhaps too composed. And that composure became its own mystery. Was it resilience or was it resignation? Was he protecting himself or protecting the image built around him? These questions lingered, unanswered, hanging heavy in the air. As the story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: something has changed. Whether that change leads to healing, transformation, or a difficult reckoning remains to be seen. But ARMY can no longer pretend that everything is the same. The era of blind reassurance has given way to cautious concern, and with it, a deeper, more complex relationship between Jungkook and those who love him.